Pukeology Podcast, where science meets your hilarious puke stories and the tips and tricks to stop that up-chuckle that you need.
You never know what's going to spew out of her mouth. Here's
my mama,
Dr. PukeNoMo.
So why are pregnant women more susceptible to having headaches and migraines during pregnancy, even if they've never had them before? How to Cure a Migraine Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast Episode 8 is about to dive into the brain. Want no more morning sickness, which is pregnancy nausea, or how about no more headaches or migraines? Visit our sponsor, NoMoMigraine.com. NoMoMigraine.com, the only natural way to instantly stop your worst nausea, vomiting, and head pain now. Or just place No Mo Nausea Ban on your baby registry for your delivery bag at Bye Bye Baby and Babies R Us real soon. And your little ones are always taken care of with the first and only natural remedy for children called No Mo Nausea Kids, available at your local CVS stores. Pregnancy humor that just may make you want to pee your pants. Like you don't have to pee all the time anyway, with hilarious migraine puke stories called Booty and Brains, Puke Puddle, and Chipmunk Cheeks. If you want to learn more about your pregnancy, humor and knowledge is the key to help you survive these 9 months. And just know we're in this together. With helpful science that you will know from this podcast. Why are pregnant women more susceptible to headaches and migraines, especially in their second trimester? What are the different types of headaches or migraines, and what do they feel like? And finally, how to cure a headache or a migraine naturally, a solution that anyone, pregnant or not, can employ.
Throwing up on a Tuesday? One puke story.
Do you have a hilarious pregnancy story that you just can't wait to share? Send it to me at pukeology@nomonausea.com. That's PUKEOLOGY at nomonausea.com. Or just tweet us at Pukeology so we can all have a good laugh together. First story.
One puke story.
After my second baby, I knew the headache was coming. These migraines were obviously my body's way of adjusting to normal hormonal fluctuations post-baby. So when it hit, we went immediately to the urgent care. I left my baby at home with my husband, and I was totally sad at having to leave her. I had to wait for quite a while at the doctor's, and that's when I started throwing up everywhere. The only thing I could think of was I was going to start doing a personal best at puking in every single bathroom. I hit a record that day, friends. 4 bathrooms, puking my guts out in 4 different locations. Finally, the doctor saw me, and thankfully it was my favorite doctor. I had to get a shot in my booty. Please, readers, remember, a 4-day postpartum mommy who's just thrown up in 4 bathrooms and is now getting a shot in the rear. It's only once you have to live through this that you can finally be able to laugh at yourself. Thank you, Jane, so much for your booty ease story. On Easter, I went to my friend's house since my husband was deployed and I was pregnant, so I couldn't enjoy all the festivities. Instead, I played video games while my friend, he ate with his family. Then he brought me this mountain of leftovers. I ate it all. What was a pregnant girl to do but eat? Later on, we went to the convenience store and I bought 4 Lunchables. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 Lunchables, which I knew was a pregnancy no-no, but would soon learn that my body would reject it. Guess what? I ate all of them. That night, he fell asleep on the floor, so I took his bed. I woke up at 4 a.m, leaning in his kitchen sink, puking my brains out. I used to sleepwalk. I went back to the bed And when I put my hand down, it was into a puddle, a big, smelly puke puddle. Ugh, gross. I clicked on the flashlight and saw that the entire bed was literally covered in puke. I folded the sheets, threw them in his laundry room, and walked 2 miles home in my puke-covered pajamas at 4 a.m. This was definitely my personal favorite story, E-Benzer SP100GE, as I can see you right now walking home covered in puke. Thanks for sharing. My 2 brothers and I had friends, and we had just eaten at Olive Garden. I was driving. My brother was in the front passenger seat, and my youngest brother was directly behind me, and one of our friends was next to them, next to my youngest brother. I had been driving down the road for a few minutes when my friend looked over and notices that my youngest brother's cheeks are puffed out. He asked my brother what he's doing. My youngest brother doesn't reply because he had a migraine from hell, but started making desperate sounds and just then unloads a huge load of vomit directly onto the back of my seat and down the pocket. Everyone starts screaming, "Pull over!" As I'm pulling over into a gas station, my friend in the back seat opens the door and pukes as the car is rolling across the parking lot. That's when my older brother in the front seat, directly ahead of him, opens the door and starts puking. Finally, after the car stops, the combination of puke and the sound in sight forces me to open my door as I vomit profusely in the parking lot, which was super easy for me because I was already a few months pregnant. It was literally a counterclockwise chain reaction of vomit, and I was the easy pregnant one, but nobody knew. A few days later, I paid a car detailer to clean up the vomit mess. My car never smelled the same. It was years before I could eat at Olive Garden again. Enchanted Bunny, that was hilarious. I think you need to call your brother Chipmunk Cheeks after that.
The Science of Puke, Pukeology.
Did you know that headaches are reported in 35% of pregnant women? Some even experience headaches for the first time ever, and it usually starts in the second trimester. So we get all excited because most of us finally have finished our morning sickness in the first trimester, and now we have to worry about nausea due to headaches and migraines in our second. Man, these babies better love us being mommies. Isn't it wonderful the many gifts we receive from our little ones even before they get here? So it's important to identify if a headache is from a primary source, like a tension headache or a migraine, or a secondary source when something else is causing the head pain, like high blood pressure, also known as hypertension, preeclampsia, or idiopathic intracranial hypertension, which is high blood pressure in the brain of an unknown source. That can obviously be subarachnoid hemorrhage, such as if you were to hit your head really hard, blood leaking into the subarachnoid space. Basically, it's just a big, huge volume of blood shrinking the amount of the brain causing head pain, or a reversible cerebral vasoconstriction, where the blood vessels in the head are just squeezed so tight that they're obviously not letting the passage of blood through. We're only going to focus on those that affect pregnancy or the majority of pregnant women, as I could do a completely different podcast on neurology causing high intracranial pressures because, again, neuroanesthesia used to be my absolute favorite form of practice. Primary hypertension are benign. They're similar to tension headaches caused by muscle contractions. Have you ever had like a really super stiff neck or hold on to stress in your shoulders? That's what's causing a headache. So that's the type of headache that I'm talking about here. This is a bilateral headache or head pain that's usually a tight band of pain on both sides of the head. Just remember, ladies, no NSAIDs. NSAIDs like Advil, Excedrin, etc. while pregnant. No aspirin, but like Tylenol and stuff like that is okay. So we'll talk about other things later, but just remember, no NSAIDs. So if it says that it's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, put it black on the shelf and instead grab NoMo Migraine. Foods that can be triggers, believe it or not, and ones that are high in preservatives. You all remember the list of foods that I hopefully was able to instill in you guys. If not, go over to Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 5, Foods Not to Eat While Pregnant. And this will give you a list of the do's and don'ts that are good and bad in pregnancy. But believe it or not, these same type of foods are actually not just on the bad list, but they can trigger headaches during your second trimester. So stay away from high contents of MSG. I know Chinese food sounds amazing right now, but again, the MSG part, make sure it says no MSG. Fermented cheese, like bries and all of those really soft, stinky cheeses, and vinegar. Both red and white, because these foods contain 2 different amino acids called tyramine and phenylethylamine, which is an additive that can trigger the onset of a migraine. So migraines are by definition with or without an aura, or an aura is also known as a technical definition or term as a visual disturbance. So you feel that difficulty in seeing, or you see kind of like an aura, like a ring, as though you would see when the different cloud structures change and you literally get like this halo type of effect. Migraines are actually usually unilateral. They are throbbing and aggravated by light, where nausea and vomiting are most definitely present. Migraines are actually termed by definition as a certain number of headaches per month. That being said, I believe it's more than 10 headaches per month is what is considered to be a migraine or a chronic condition. Headaches, boom, just happen. Migraines, chronic. So remember that. Migraines usually improve during the 3rd trimester. Some studies correlate that women suffering with migraines are at an increased risk for preeclampsia. So preeclampsia is classified as the new onset of high blood pressure after weeks 20, with significant proteinuria, also known as protein in the urine, which if untreated, so if this high blood pressure, if you don't have prenatal care, if you don't see an OBGYN, high blood pressure during pregnancy means that your body starts to actually break down muscle. That's what that proteinuria, and that's the danger of it, because what happens is it actually leads to, or it can lead to, eclampsia. And eclampsia is strokes and seizures. It is very important that as you guys get past 20 weeks, if you have horrible head pain, you have flank pain, that is that spleen itself, please go see your doctor, because high blood pressure can actually, they may want to emergently take the baby, especially if the baby is viable, because of the fact that it is the most dangerous situation for you, and you don't want to have a seizure or obviously have a stroke thereafter giving birth. And like I talked about, that flank pain and the severe headache, you'll also see lots of edema. So an edematous means swollen ankles, swollen everything, face, arms, things of that nature.
Tips and tricks to stop the up-chuckle that you need.
So find those reasons why you would actually want to have a headache or a migraine. Never. Let me tell you, never. The good news is there are many now non-pharmacologic treatments. And we already talked about before, no NSAIDs or aspirin during pregnancy unless otherwise instructed by your physician. But Tylenol is actually okay for head pain or fevers. The thing is that with Tylenol, it's going to take 45 minutes to work anyway. So don't you want something that works quicker and that actually targets the receptors? So let's think about how the emergency rooms treat a migraine. Okay, there's 3 different things. Number 1, they give you oxygen. Number 2, they give you pain medication, but not to take away the pain, but much less distract the brain. So you're literally feeding these mu receptors, which are called pain receptors, and you're just distracting them. Your brain is an amazing popularity contest. For all of the structures in your brain, such as hormonal, your hormonal imbalances or your hormones saying, hey, I have a headache. Well, guess what? If you end up balancing the I don't have a headache or I don't have a head pain, the majority wins. So you won't have one. Tertiary, they treat it with fluids for dehydration. First, I want to personally start with what my favorite is. Every time I have a headache or a migraine, pregnant or not, I always go to nomomigraine.com. Just type in no more migraine and you'll be amazed. Again, drink lots of water, especially while pregnant during the summer months. Both of my babies are Leos, and I was walking around Disney and other theme parks in July, exhausted, hot, and we have an increased risk of heat stroke as well. And later I will actually do a podcast on heat stroke as we come back around to the summer months. But it is very important, dehydration. So what is actually causing this head pain when it's a dehydration source? Your brain is literally bathed with cerebral spinal fluid, or think of it as your brain is kind of floating inside of water. When that water goes away or evaporates, so that fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid, your brain is being held or attached by small little threads. Okay, these are the meninges. And what happens is those attach the cranium to the skull and the brain. So I want you to imagine this floating piece of brain is now no longer floating but being suspended, and pulling on those strings or those meninges end up having referred pain because of dehydration. So it's super important that you guys stay hydrated the entire time. NoMo migraine, going back to the first and only natural way to instantly stop headaches or migraines, believe it or not, on your wrist. So let's talk about all three ways that we talked about how to treat a migraine in the emergency room. Well, it uses the same principles. The first is the smell of aromatherapy of peppermint, believe it or not, which helps to increase the amount of oxygenation when smelled through the nose. The nose is a direct pathway to the brain, so it happens the quickest. In about a couple seconds, believe it or not. Secondarily, in about 2 minutes, you'll feel the cooling sensation that wraps around the wrist to help distract the brain. There's that distraction technology we were talking about. Again, popularity contest, the majority wins. And the secondary, or the most important that I want to talk about, is when we talk about the majority winning or this distraction technology. It's kind of like saying, man, my finger really hurts. Well, if somebody stomps on your toe, what's going to happen? Your finger is going to automatically feel better because you're going to be focusing on the referred pain from your toe. That's the distraction technology that I'm talking about. And that's the same thing that can happen when the cooling sensation of the wrist. The temperature, pressure, and touch receptors are located so closely together. And believe it or not, just that constant feeling of like, woo, that's nice and cold on my wrist will make you forget that you're having a headache or a migraine in the first place. And I recommend for migraines, put it on as soon as you feel that aura, guys. And for headaches, just put it on whenever. It's not going to change anything. It's going to actually help and not hurt. So the menthol within the actual peppermint oil is what causes that super cooling sensation. Also, remember, constant pressure with the acupressure is necessary. So unless you have all the time in the world to apply that pressure to the P6 point, and if you want to find out exactly where that P6 point is, go over to nomomigraine.com or nomonausea.com and it'll describe it in detail with an actual diagram. But believe it or not, these wristbands are awesome. They're waterproof and stylish. So the peppermint oil actually acts as that dual purpose. It acts, number one, as an arterial vasoconstrictor. We all know that caffeine helps headaches. Well, this is the reason why. Caffeine, it actually helps to decrease that pounding sensation in the head by reducing blood flow to the brain. But it also acts as a venodilator, which means when the blood is coming back, it helps to pull it and make kind of like a really open pond or lake of increasing the amount of oxygen because it's now pooling on the venous. So remember, going to the brain, it shrinks it so you have less of that pounding headache. And then peppermint oil secondarily increases venodilation, which means it pools the oxygen, so you have more to bring. So again, it increases that oxygen storage. Acupressure at P6 is incredible at breaking the current headache cycle. We've already talked about the distraction portion of what that combined peppermint inside of the acupressure does, but it increases your beta endorphins. These beta endorphins, I call them anti-headache hormones, are also known as happy hormones. What happens is that your body increases these hormones, and when your body tells itself, hey, I guess I'm not in pain anymore, you aren't in pain even before the stimulus happens. So you've broken that headache cycle and increased the length of time until your next migraine by over 3 days. Believe it or not, the anti-headache and anti-migraine effect of NoMo migraine works for 12 to 24 hours even after the band has been removed. The Korean hand sign is another amazing acupressure point. It's actually located in between your pointer and your thumb that you can literally squeeze. It's kind of where the web is. And when you squeeze in between there, it helps to also break that headache cycle. So I would most definitely recommend natural entities, acupressure, acupuncture, peppermint oil, and avoiding those foods that can actually cause it. Now that you know the science behind a headache versus a migraine, what are the 3 repeatable tricks that we use to treat headaches and migraines in the emergency room? And ultimately, I hope I've given you the best information about pregnancy migraines that there is to date. If you love Pregnancy Pukeology Podcasts, let us know. Give us a 5-star rating. But more importantly, share with all your prego friends. Thanks again for listening to Pukeology Podcast and Pregnancy Episode 8, How to Cure a Migraine.
Pukeology Podcast, edutainment at its finest.